Good morning, everybody. It's Nick here, and James. Say hey to James.
Hi.
Let's see. Well, we're trying to widescreen it, so let's see if I can see the questions coming in. I don't know if I can see the questions coming in. Let's hold this and take this out. See? 4 people watching. Write a question, somebody, if you can. Just type something so I can check. See if you can hear me. We're a little bit late getting started today. Okay. Put on a mask to give yourself a fun look. Oh my gosh, what's this? I don't want to have a mask. I'll spin it this way. Oh, there you go. Hello, Kelly. Hey, Cindy. Just getting this worked out. Hey, Kristen. How are you? Okay, so James is filming me, and I'm here looking tired. Oh, so close. Maybe I'll leave my sweatshirt on. Okay, so I've been really busy recently. I just got back, so I need some Java to help me through the morning. Got up a plane late last night. Spent the last few days in LA. We went to LA. We did a big show in LA, and then I was in Atlanta yesterday doing some clients. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about scissor cutting. And we've been doing a lot of razor cutting, but I want to kind of like get into some scissor hair cutting. And it's what we teach a lot, and it's kind of the core foundation of what we train. And I've got my small scissors. Now, the difference between a small scissor and a big scissor is obviously size. But when you're working with a small shear, it gives you the ability to get into smaller places, tight spaces, because the head itself, you know, is attached to a body, so you always have a body. Now, obviously, when you're working on a mannequin, there's no body. But when you're working around the head, you've got to be able to get into small, unique places. So today I really want to just go through some body positioning. I want to go through some holding of the shear and kind of walk you through kind of how I maximize my potential with the scissors. So let me just talk about, this is the BMAC, Arrojo BMAC 5.0. It's a 5-inch scissor. This is the same scissor that we give to all of our students at cosmetology school. It's the scissors that I use every day. These retail for $335, but for those people that are watching Brooklyn Live, we have a 24-hour discount code for all of our people that are watching Brooklyn Live, and it's BKLYN Live. And that's the discount code available on Arrojo Pro, arrojopro.com. It's for 24 hours, and if you're interested in getting some scissors, you can't go wrong with these scissors. Yeah, before I worked with my own scissors, I was working, with Hikari. I like Hikari shears, the Cosmos, but the Cosmos are very expensive. We also have another shear, which is a great shear by Mizutani. So we have 2 Arrojo scissors. The Mizutani is a slim shear. We don't have it here, but this is the BMAC 5.0, $335, brilliant pricing. And let me show you how we hold them. So get pretty close. I don't know how close you can get. Have you got a nice angle on this, James? Yeah? So this is the way I really hold my scissors. I'm not really into scissors with, this is an offset handle, which I like. It kind of gives me a better balance and a better angle. I'm not really into scissors with all of the funky handles. There's a lot of them out there. Talk about the, handles with extra pieces and extra bits. I like something simple, clean, and classic. Maybe I think some of these ergonomic scissors work well because maybe we cut hair in a slightly different way. But I'll show you how I use my scissor, because as I travel the country and as I share my technique, what I'm really trying to do is try and share what I've learned and share how I've become successful in hairdressing. So the first thing is the hold of the scissor. So you'll notice that the thumb actually does not go in to the actual scissor itself. So I literally place the shear inside the third finger, and I like my tang because my small finger literally creates pressure. This pushes down, and this pushes down, and this finger here is actually pushing up. So you've got pressure down and pressure up from the third finger. And what happens is, really, if you think about this, pushing down, pushing down, pushing up. So now I've got a lot of tension in the scissor, and I'm holding that scissor very, very strongly and very cleanly. Then when I come to putting my thumb into the scissor, my thumb does not go in. My thumb literally, the edge of my thumb sits quite tight, and I put more pressure. And I'm actually pushing my thumb. My thumb is actually pushing forward onto the steel, so it's pushing this way, and that creates a really good pressure for me, so I don't have to put my thumb in to make it open. In fact, if I put my thumb in to make it open, I don't get a great range of motion. If I don't put my thumb in, I got a much better range of motion. So this is the first thing that you need to practice, is really holding the scissor. And I've been holding the scissor the same way for 30 years. As I watch, you know, some of the precision-based haircutters, there are new ways that people are holding the scissor, which I think is awesome. But this is my way, and this is what I feel the most comfortable with. So the thumb pressing in, and then literally I can move the blade upside. I can move the blade really open, how open I can get that blade. Now the reason why another reason why the thumb does not go in is because I want to have a great range of motion. So I get a much better range of motion when my thumb doesn't go in. And when you think about cutting hair, it's really the thumb is the one action that moves. Everything else is solid. So everything stays solid, and it's just the thumb that moves. And you want to practice opening the blade so you can get a 90-degree angle. Yeah, a lot of people tend to, when they begin, they have short motion. You want to practice getting a wide motion. And you want this blade here to be static, so it never moves. But this blade here does all the movement. When it comes to cutting, this blade that sits solid literally can run like, if you ever play pool and you always use your finger to hold the cue stick, you know, this here never moves. So we always say that when we're cutting, one of the things that we teach is we like to teach a lot of what we call palm-to-palm cutting. So if I look at this is what I mean by palm-to-palm. There's a palm, hand palm-to-palm. Because when you go the opposite way, now you put a lot of stress on your hand. So that stress is that's going to give you a lot of stress throughout the day. Watch my wrist here. If I'm cutting this way, and I see a lot of people do this. It's not something that I like to do. The other challenge with this is, now all of a sudden, the moving blade is now on the finger. So I've got stress here, and then the moving blade is on the finger. Whereas if I rotate this hand straighter, and then what happens is this blade doesn't move. So this blade sits nice and straight on my finger. And when I'm holding the hair so I can actually, I'm not holding the hair like this, because then I've got nothing to lean on. I'm actually holding the hair with this finger slightly above the bottom of the middle finger, yeah? So then this gives me like a plane, like the edge of a pool table, where I'm resting my flat blade on, so that when I come to cut, I can cut really cleanly. And you'll notice, again, palm to palm, and if I rotate the hand so you can see it, the thumb does not go in. So this is the way in which I like to hold my scissors. This is what I call my scissor comb. My scissor comb this is an Arrojo red comb. Red is our color. If you'd never figured it out, you can see it kind of like right here. Red is the magic color for me. And again, I think it's all to do with branding. So it's been really good to watch, you know, companies like Moroccan Oil really own blue, and, you know, Candy Shaw owning yellow. Well, Arrojo's always tried to own red. And if you know why, it's because I'm a big supporter of Manchester United. Greatest team in the land. More coffee. This is what happens. You're allowed to have coffee on a Thursday morning when you're exhausted like I am. We have any people watching?
We've got 62.
Great, thanks for tuning in. Every Thursday morning, Brooklyn Live. I want a big shout out to Derek Anthony. He was just with me in LA, the big D spot, the Vin Diesel of hairdressing. That's his new nickname. Derek Anthony was with us on stage, along with Jeff Stump, along with 3 of my most amazing, you know, female hairdressers. And we had a great time in LA. And if anyone's checking us out from LA, thanks for your support. Okay, let me now go through some, you know, some basics when it comes to combing, right? Because you've got this beautiful red comb. I'll just refresh on this. What this is you have this, what we call low tension, even tension. It's a small comb, which makes it easy for you to rotate in the hand. So it's not cumbersome. I don't have super large hands, but a lot of hairdressers are female and they have, you know, petite hands. So I think it's important not to get too big with your comb and too deep. What I love about this comb, this is a comb bank comb. It's in our Arrojo red. And what I love about it is it's fine teeth here and it's slightly wider teeth here. And let me go through how we're going to work this. So sectioning is very, very important. And when you're sectioning, what you really want to do is make sure that you get really nice clean sections. Now you'll see my mannequin here is a bit on the wobbly side, so let me see if I can tighten that up. Whenever you are doing anything, you're practicing with mannequins, understand the stand. Yeah, understand the stand, because you want the stand to help you when you do your cutting. So let's just go through some basic fundamentals of how I like to section. And I always section with this. I section right in here. Yeah, right in here. That's where I section. And usually when I'm sectioning, what I'm doing is I am putting my finger on top of the comb to create a really nice, clean section. And when I talk about a really nice, clean section, what I mean by that is I want to see some consistency, and I really want to see the lightness of the scalp. And when it comes to sectioning, the sectioning is just as important as the cut. The clip is also very important. I love these clips by Jatai. These clips are a plastic. They're really tight, but not too tight. They have a light grip on them inside. You'll never get any hair stuck in these because there's nothing for the hair to get stuck on. And then once you've taken your section, you comb the hair down. So what we'll do is you can see this was probably razor cut, probably by me. Let's have a look and see. Probably razor cut by me or somebody else. And when you razor cut, the difference is when you razor cut like this long length from here, you'll razor cut from the top to the bottom. When you scissor cut, you can't cut this way. Very awkward. I don't know how much you have of me. I would try and get a little bit more of my body position. You can't cut like this because how are you going to hold it? But when you razor cut on the right hand side, you can razor the hair down, and then you can rotate and razor the hair down. So when you razor cut, you can cut down and you can cut down. When you scissor cut, when you're cutting one side, you'll cut up, and when you cut the other side, you cut down. So there's very distinct difference there when it comes to hair cutting with a scissor. So let's just say that we're going to cut this shorter, yeah? But we're going to kind of go with the same kind of concept. So what I want to do is if I want to cut, let's say we're going to cut the bangs, and then we're going to scoop it down and around. I'm going to cut right in here. And I'm not going to cut this way, because it's difficult. It would be not impossible, but very hard. I'm actually going to cut upward. I'm going to cut upwards. So now what I'm doing is, remember this, where the Arrojo is right here, this blade is going to sit on my fingers and it's going to rest. So I'm not floating. When I float, it's easier for me to kind of not be as balanced. So when I'm cutting hair with a scissor, I always want to be very, very balanced. So I'm resting that blade. I'm resting that blade, the one that doesn't move, and I'm cutting the hair up. Now, let me go through this again. I want to see exactly, you don't want this section here, because we're going to do some cutting, we're going to do some hair cutting with scissors for the next few weeks. I want this section here not to be any longer than my fingers, because otherwise then I'm going to pull that hair in. I don't want to pull that hair in. I want to comb that hair straight down. So with the fine teeth, so you'll see how balanced it is with the fine teeth. Fine teeth give you even tension. Comb the hair down. And then as we do this kind of face frame, I always say down and around. And then what happens is the scissor that's cutting is resting on the finger, and see the cleanness of the line. Now let's go to the next section. I'm going to comb that hair down again. Again, remembering that I don't want to take too much hair, because then I'm going to pinch the hair together. So I'm going to comb this hair down. And I'm going to try and come in. So I'm actually trying to create a curve shape. So as I'm coming, I want to come in and around, because that's going to enable me to keep as much of this corner as possible. Now you'll notice I'm going to take a second chance at that, because you can see right here that area needed to be balanced. And then the final section. Now this is kind of the most advanced scissor cutting in my opinion. And I'll tell you why. Because you're using little over direction, you're far away from the head, you're trying to create a curved line, and you're having to do it in a number of areas. In other words, you've got to break it down into like 4 or 5 different cuts. And you can see as we comb this head down and around here, you want to make sure you get that nice clean line. And I remember learning how to do this at the very beginning of my career, and I remember how difficult it was. So it's not something that's easy to achieve. That's section 1. Let's just look at my body position. I'm not standing, if this is the mannequin, I'm not standing on the side. I'm literally standing on an angle towards the front of her. So if the arm of the chair here, it would be, I would have one leg positioned either side of the arm. So I never stand on the side. I stand more to the corner of the chair. And that gives me a better position for me to maneuver. And I also have, movability in my arms and my shoulders and my legs, because body position is something that's really important when it comes to scissor cutting. Let me go through the second section just to show you how we create the same kind of a shape with a scissor. It's different from when you would cut it with a razor. So again, thumb and practice really good combing. Thumb, hold, thumb, hold, comb away, no twisting, and take the clip, and you have the hair away and you can clearly see that defined line. Let me come behind and see what we got. Oh, it's great. Okay. Right, so now let me carry on. So now let's go through the next section. And as I pull the next section down, always make sure the hair's evenly damp, because when the hair's evenly damp, that is when you can actually cut the hair well. Now look at the thickness of the section. I can clearly see my guide in my fingers. I'm resting, and you'll see I just rest in, and my section's thick enough for me to cut hair off, but fine enough for me to see my guide. And I'm going to follow that guide. Now notice how this hand moves as well, because I want to rest on my fingertips. Actually, I want to rest the blade, not on my fingertips, on the flat of the third finger. Yeah? Because this is a very steep angle for me to create. We're combing the head down and around. We're combing the head down and around. Now, I see a lot of people do this. Back of the hand, do this. Now, you may think that this is comfortable, but I can tell you the amount of stress. Let me take my sweatshirt off so you can see what's happening to my arm. Don't worry, I'm going to keep the shirt on, okay? So you'll see what's happening to my arm here. I'm cutting this down and around, and I'm cutting so I'm comfortable, I'm flat. You see, palm to palm, palm to palm. A lot of people, I see this all the time. They go like this. Now what's happened to my hand is now my hand is getting under more strain, because as I come here, look at the stress. Look at this. Look at the skin here. This is super taut. It's putting a lot of stress on me. Whereas if I come like this, relaxes everything. So we always say, I'm a firm believer, cut palm to palm. Of course, when you've been doing hair a long time, you've worked out your technique. When we're training people, we like to teach them palm to palm. In my salon, we teach hairdressers, we teach our staff every day, and we have classes every single day. So there's class today, but not here in Brooklyn. It's in Soho. Again, clean sectioning. So once you take the clip out, super clean sectioning. Comb that hair down. Work kind of methodically. Notice how I have a watch on. I always keep my watch on because I always want to work to time. And every time I'm cutting, I'm looking to see, hey, are we on time? Are we away from time? Now today's lesson is much more just about getting this scissor action in. So when we tune in next week, we're going to start to actually do some real life hair cutting. But I really just want to show you some what I call body positioning and some scissor classics. Combing, holding the blade. So we're not doing too much over direction. If I started to over direct, I'll cut more hair off. And if I start to elevate, I'll cut more hair off. Yeah? When I comb the hair down to natural fall, I actually cut less hair. Down to natural fall, cut less hair. And that, because this has already been pre-cut, it's kind of not that, there's not that much hair to cut. So again, just keep it nice and tight. So this is kind of a classic layering shape from the front. And you can actually see the curved shape that we've created. And the reason why you want to create a curved shape like this is because you want to keep the corner here so that the client actually has length, not just here, but she has length in front of the ear. Now let me just flip the mannequin. You stay there, James. Flip the mannequin. So you're not going to be able to see the sectioning, but what you are going to be able to do is see my body. So you take a nice clean section, the hair away, comb the hair down and around, and then I cut up. So now on this side, and I'm stood on a position that the chair is literally right in between. The arm of the chair would be kind of right in between my legs. So I'm in a perfect position to move to the side and to the front. I can move around. When we come to the opposite side, it's exactly the same. So you want to be in the same position. So you want to be in a diagonal to her eye, a diagonal to the corner of the chair. On this side, we cut up, and on this side, we cut down. So now what we'll do is we'll take exactly the same section. Now you'll notice there's two things I can do. My finger, my thumb, always resting on the comb, because then it holds the hair. Practice the cleanliness of your work, because when you practice the cleanliness of your work, your whole gig looks better and it's easier to map out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to replicate on this side. Now, one of the techniques that I like to say is you can always get your client to just lightly push her head over. When the client pushes her head over to the side, ever so slightly, she doesn't want to be leaning to the side, but she just opens up a little bit more space for you to maneuver. And with the hair now, still, we're going to pinch a little piece of hair from the opposite side. Pinch a little piece of hair, that's your guide. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut down. Now again, see how I cut down? And I'm just going to check that, because I'm just going to check it to make sure that we don't go too short. If anything, when I come to the second side, I always want to veer on the side of leaving the hair a little longer. So now look at my body. I don't know if you can see my elbow, but my elbow is now up. On this side, my elbow was down, and this elbow was up. The holding hand's elbow was up. This now, the elbow is up. And now we're going to be combing the hair straight down. Now remember, this side I'm cutting the hair down. This side I was cutting the hair up. That makes it a little bit more complicated and a little bit more complex. Let's just have a quick look and see, because one of the things when it comes to cutting hair, and I'll move the mannequin to the front here, you want to look at touch points. So first off, look at the sections, how balanced they are. And let me just take a touch point from here and a touch point from the same place on the opposite side. And you can see that my touch points are balanced. If you want to check that in a slightly different way, you can pull straight up and you can see how my touch points are actually very, very balanced, because you want it to look. Now when you're doing this, and I see this happens a lot, this is what I see. Watch. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What you're really doing there is, I'm not sure. What I want you to do, what I've always been a big, I've really kind of stood behind, is whenever you're checking, you've got to look at what you're checking. And you have to look, because you want to check balance through an imaginary line. And that imaginary line goes from your fingers, from side to side. So there's a line that's coming across here that's helping me see that it's balanced. Because if I'm here, I can't see if it's balanced. But if I'm looking, I can see if that imaginary line is actually working. So, when you're cutting down, it's good to take a little check. Make sure you keep the head down, don't go away. I'll come straight back. I'll grab a little bit of my Arrojo Hydro Mist, which is a lightweight conditioning spray, which we like to use when we're cutting, because here's a very important point that you'll hear me say a lot, is that we don't like the hair to be saturated. We want the hair to be wet to the touch, not dripping. If I see the water drip down the client's gown, I'm not happy. I'm not a happy camper. Number one, the hair's too wet. Number two, it's uncomfortable. Number three, it looks messy. So I always think, look professional, keep the hair evenly damp, wet to the touch. And wet to the touch means when you squeeze the hair, it doesn't drip. Yeah, this is all part of the preparation. I'll just do one or two more cuts for you here, and then we'll go to some different types of holding. So you'll see here, you'll see that I've already cut all of this. So now, come down and around. When I comb the hair, I comb the hair down. I'm combing the hair free, using the fine teeth of the comb to get even tension. And then as I get towards the ends of the hair, that's when I place my fingers. Now watch what happens here. I'm not touching the hair with my hand yet. So my fingers are like this. And there's enough room for the hair to freely move, but it's only when I want to hold the hair do I clamp them together.
Nick, Janet Terry's Lyric wants to know how you feel about dry cutting.
Love dry cutting. I think dry cutting's amazing. I think that we should learn everything when it comes to doing hair. Dry cutting is great for you to kind of refine and finish your work. It also gives you a slightly different feel when you're cutting hair from scratch when it's dry. So, and cutting curly hair dry can be a lot of fun too. Again, different feel, different flavor. What I like to do is I like to teach people, and I believe in teaching the foundation of classic cutting. And then once you've learned that foundation of classic cutting with a scissor, which to me is wet cutting. And I remember, because I was trained at Vidal Sassoon, I remember listening to Vidal on an interview on the radio. And Vidal said the reason why he cuts the hair wet is so that he can control it better. You have better control. And you can see when the hair is wet, you can see how you can get the hair holds together so that, guess what? You can control the hair in a way, and we're basically putting in architecture into the shape. And once you understand the architecture into the shape, then I think it's great for you to move on and expand on razor cutting, dry cutting. I'm not a big proponent of saying don't do this and don't do that. So you'll notice that most of the things that I say these days, this is the way that I like to do things, and this is what I believe in. See here again, just the top blade moving and keeping it very static. You'll see that with my elbow up, I can get the angle in, and you can also see that I'm actually bending my leg to get down slightly lower and put my head slightly closer to the angle of the cut, so I can see exactly what is happening.
Nick, one of your viewers says that she seems to notice her hair growing faster since she's been dry cutting it. Do you think that has an effect on the hair growth at all?
Not really. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. I don't think the roots talk to the ends, and I don't think the scissors changes, your hair. But I think your perception of it is very real, because that's your perception. But I don't know that it's the dry cutting that's actually doing it. That's my personal belief. I think there's a lot of things when it comes to hair that we are told, and people have their opinions, and obviously I have my opinion. But my opinion is that whatever is happening at the root is not necessarily telling the ends anything. Because once this comes out of the follicle, it just comes out of the follicle. I do believe that your hair grows different stages in life. I do believe that you lose hair sometimes more than at other times. I do believe that, it all doesn't grow evenly. But I don't believe that cutting hair dry is going to make your hair do anything better. The same way that in certain religions they cut all the hair off and they say it grows back thicker. I don't know if I've seen real proof of that. Okay, so let's just go back, and I hope that answers your question. Down, up, down, down. Comfortable, on the corner, on the corner. And then always have always have touch points. Excuse me. It's that plain air. Yeah, it's like I think the last week I've been on a plane every day, But the good news is I'm not on a plane for another 2 days. Yes. And then always have these touch points that you can check. And you can see right now, slightly longer. You can see if I spin around as I went into my second section, slightly longer, which is exactly what I want it to be, because when I take that touch point, I go, okay, it's longer, which is good, because now I don't have to cut this side because this side's shorter, this side's longer. I take my touch point and I can refine it. And when we do this type of face framing, I like to do 2 sections and 2 sections, 2 sections and 2 sections. 1 and 1 doesn't give me enough balance, so 2 and 2. Let's go through a little bit of graduation, yeah? Let's go through a little bit of graduation. So, again, when it comes to graduation, people have their own ideas. Yeah, so there's a little bit of layering. Let's do a little bit of graduation in the nape. So again, nice clean sectioning. Make sure you really work well with the hair. I like to make sure that I don't do too much twisting because it's just wasting time. Yeah? I like to just comb the hair out to the sides. Always look for the center back. The center back's the top of the spine. You can feel that bone. It was difficult when I first began cutting to get that perfect. The good news is when you have a mannequin, mannequins usually have some kind of marking, and that's usually in a central place. So it can help you. This one, I don't know if you can see it with the iPhone, but this one has it says click, and there's a little triangle there, so at the top of the triangle. So let me just show you, just look at body position before we start getting into cutting. So body position, cutting up, cutting down, cutting up, cutting down. Look at my legs. So I bend on the upside and I bend on the downside. So I'm using the weight, I'm using my feet and my knees to get perfect balance and comfort. Yeah, and bending your knees kind of helps. You should stay moving, especially you cutting hair. I've been cutting hair for 35 years. Stay moving, it's very important. All right, now this is where it becomes vital when you're working with a small shear. Let's just say we want to get in really tight into the back of the head. So now there's my clean section, and this is the hardest side to cut when you're cutting up. When you're cutting up, you want to make sure that your thumb, if your thumb is in, it's really hard to get in here. Whereas when your thumb is not in the blade, it's much easier for you to allow the shear to fall down the side of the neck into the space where the neck is over the shoulder. And then you can come right the way in. Obviously on this side, it's a lot easier, but you've got to get this hand in so this hand sits over the back of the neck. And just one of the things, look at these 2 fingers. A lot of people tend to leave all these fingers hanging out. Tuck those fingers away, kind of create a gun. So these 2 fingers are out of the way. You don't need these fingers for cutting unless you're using them to rest. The rest of the time, keep these fingers out of the way so you can get closer to the back of the head.
Nick, going back to the face frame, were you keeping a low elevation to keep the weight in the front?
When you do a face frame, in order to keep length around the front, you keep 0 elevation and 0 over direction. If you over direct, you're going to take the corner out. And the whole concept is to try to keep some weight and length. And this is really where the length is, where it's critical. Because the length definitely is going to end up being in the back here. But you want to make sure that the head just in front of the ear retains as much length as possible, because that is going to have an effect on the length through here. And when you are doing face framing and layering from the front, the judgment factor is the most important piece. So yes, you've got to have the technique correct, but you got to have perfect judgment, because it's not like it, even though we say long layering is a classic technique, layering from the front, it can be many, many different lengths depending on texture, density, and desired result. Did that answer the question well? Who knows?
So.
I hope so. Right, so again, just keep the hair damp, not dripping. Let's just do a few sections on one side, because really today what we're doing is we're really starting to get into how to hold a scissor, how to map out the head in a way where you're getting really nice clean sections, and some core principles on body position. So coming through, try not to comb this head down. Yeah, I'm not teaching you a haircut. I'm teaching you some technique. So what I want to do is I want to comb this hair straight out, and I want to look for my guide. And my guide is right there. That's my guide. Come through. Now you'll notice how my scissor is not the blade is not moving, so I'm resting on the finger. It really helps me to create a much cleaner line than if I was just floating. So this piece of the skin is where the blade actually sits. I'll just carry on. Consistent sections that are parallel. No twisting of the hair. It's not needed. It doesn't matter whether you cut from the bottom up or as I'm doing here. I'm always cutting up on this side. But you can see I cut the top piece first. It's easier for me. And you can see I'm following my guide. And I'm cutting directly on the guideline. And this is kind of the basic fundamentals of graduation. And you can see that by doing what we call, this is more vertical graduation, you can see the shape actually starting to be accomplished. And by combing the hair out pretty much at 90, and by over directing the hair back, because what cutting is basically sectioning, elevation, over direction, and how you actually cut the hair.
And you're using the fine teeth on the comb for better tension.
Fine teeth of the comb for better tension. When you use the wider teeth on the comb, it's low tension cutting. Yeah? And this is a scissor cutting comb, so when we come to scissor cutting class, this is always the comb that we use. And this is an Arrojo comb. It's our classic Arrojo red. And the nice thing about this comb is it's got flexibility. And I believe it's actually Sessibon, not comb bank. So it's got a nice bend to it so it doesn't break. Yeah, and I do love YS Park combs. I love them because they have the space. But what I don't like about them is when I drop my comb, they break. And these combs retail for around about $7. You can get them on Arrojo Pro. And for anybody watching, there's a special discount. For the next 24 hours only, 20% off anything on arrojopro.com. And the special code is BKLYN. It's the same header for the show. Stands for Brooklyn. BKLYN live at arrojopro.com. So there you go. You can see my guide. You can see the thickness of the section, and you can see clearly me building the graduation. And you can see how comfortable. Look how uncomfortable. Uh-oh. Very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Very comfortable. Palm to palm. When we're doing the opposite side, I'll spin around. Opposite side, exactly the same process. Again, I don't want to get into doing a full haircut for you guys today. I just want to get into sharing and showing how I work.
Nick, do you usually start your haircut in the front, or was that just for video purposes?
Oh, great question. My long layers, I would say 90% I tend to cut from the front. But you know what? Once you learn how to do the cuts one way, learn how to do them another. So I can graduate from the back in a number of different ways, and I can do long layers also a number of different ways. So there's no usual, but there is a process and a technique. And on our subscription, which is $30 a month, I do all of the classic haircuts. All of the classic haircuts are trained and taught by me. They've not really changed that much in 30 years. I was sassoon trained classically, and over the years, I've evolved my own technique, and sassoons has evolved its technique too. So again, here, map out the hair. Don't take too much into your fingers. Comb the hair. You want to be able to see your guide. Keep everything nice and clean. And then we'll just cut this hair down. And look at where my head is. I'm literally directly looking in. By bending my knee, I'm right in front. Yeah? So I'm not behind, I'm right in front. It's that bend in the leg. One of the great things about hairdressing is it keeps you healthy. You're on your feet all day, you're moving, working nice and clean, move everything around. I'll just do a couple more sections. Notice how I keep everything nice and clean. No twisting, just clipping. These clips are powerful. I've not found any hair that these clips cannot manage. And these clips are also brilliant for blow drying. Great for taking sections. I love the YS Park clips for dry cutting.
Why do people twist the hair when they're cutting?
I think because what they're trying to do is get this hair to hold up. So they think if they twist it, and there are these clips that are like clamps that a lot of people use. I like to just work quickly. 25 minutes is the perfect time for a precision-based haircut. 45 minutes is the perfect time for a really well-executed client experience, 45 minutes. So think about it. You got 5 minutes for the shampoo, 25 minutes for the cut, you've now got 15 minutes left to finish. And you've got to learn how to maximize your time. In reality, some clients have slightly thicker hair, yeah, and some clients have fine hair. And throughout the course of a day, you're gonna have ample amounts of both, and you can stay on time. So this will be my last section. Just fine teeth of the comb, and you can see, just work nice and clean and see how clean the line is. Really working on precision-based technique. And that's kind of classic graduation. You can see that classic graduation with the scissor. Yeah? You'll notice body position here and here. Because I tend to find, now let's just say if we're layering the back, this is what I see a lot. Let's just layer the back, okay? Let's just show you. We'll just quad it. Let's just quad it for the sake of quadding it.
Do you find it's hard to teach people who are left-handed?
No, I don't find it hard to teach left-handed people. No. And, it's just the exact opposite. Yeah, so when I'm teaching left-handed people, I can't cut left-handed, but then I kind of go through the motion so that they can see this, and they can then see, and I kind of put myself into the zone where I show, well, this is your position. So this is the position left-handed, and left-handed. I like to do it for myself too. If I'm combing the hair this way, so then this is the position left-handed on this side. Obviously, left-handed people will learn better from left-handed hairdressers. But really, they want to see the body position. That's what a lot of people get hung up on. So this is what happens. If this is the central, I get hung up on it too. This is the center back of the head. So all of this, when we're layering, should be pulled this way. Because always comb from your base of your section. And this side should be combed this way. So basically, if I'm just doing, let's say I'm doing a square layer. So I'm taking straight sections, vertical sections. I'm combing the hair back, doing a square layer. On this side, and I see this so much, guys. When I'm doing this side, I'm going to comb this way. But what I see is I see a lot of people comb backhanded, stand in the same position, stand in the same position, stand in the same position, and cut. While maybe not technically wrong, it's harder to create perfect balance when you're approaching the hair the same way on both sides. So when you're cutting with a scissor, you want to stand, you always want to comb, I always say from the base, not here. I don't know, when you push this hair in this way, you're not getting as good a tension, and really that's what it's all about, great tension. You comb the hair this way from the base of the section, you get great tension. And by the way, my body position is such that I'm straight behind the section. I can see exactly where I'm cutting, and we're still cutting palm to palm. When I come to this side, I comb from the base of the section. My head can lean slightly over, the weight changes, and I can see exactly where I'm cutting, and I cut straight up. I'm always combing from the base of my section. So everything on this side is pulled this way, and everything from this side is pulled this way. Now my feet move around the chair, because, you know, that's what we're trained. You've got to kind of keep fluid and moving around the chair. What I also don't really like to do too much of is I don't like to separate sections out. So I see this a lot too. They'll take a section, just take a section, again, not wrong, it's just not something that I'm a big fan of. Take a section, oh, there's my section, great, cut it, great, no problem. Now let's take another section and let's comb that away. What I like to do is I like to always comb everything. I do that both with scissor and razor. So you'll see I just comb everything. I'm picking up about 2 inches of what's previously been cut. And I'm not going to recut it, but I'm going to keep that as my solidification of my guide. So that's how you would layer the back. I would layer the front this way, move around the head, layer the front this way, move around the head. Let's talk about the top. One of the hardest things to do, while not wrong, is cut this way, because I'm away from the head. And it's harder to see where I'm pulling that hair. So I see this a lot also. Well, not wrong, I see a lot of this. Scooping the hair out, fine teeth of the comb. I would much rather, look at the hair, we're going to keep the hair in the same place. I would much rather be here. Because I'm here, I can see the elevation much better than when I'm here. So again, once you learn in palm to palm, this is one area where we're not palm to palm, because my palm is facing the back of my hand, cutting through the hair. So for me, palm to palm is always the way to go. When you are layering the top, this can be difficult. Palm to palm. Whoa. So when you are layering the top, drop your elbow. So your elbow drops. And then you can cut a really nice, clean line. Again, look at me. See how the blade rests on my finger? Lift the hair straight up. There's the section. Keep your sections nice and clean. Comb the hair straight up. So my blade is never floating. It's always resting. I tend to do less cross-checking also. I'm not a big fan of cross-checking too much. I'm a big fan of cutting the hair, and if I try and get consistency, cross-checking is good at the end to refine your work. Cross-checking is not good if you're relying on it too much, for the simple reason that then your haircut becomes a cross-check cut and not a perfectly executed cut. Our time's kind of coming to an end, so I hope that some of this scissor fundamental stuff really helped. Next week I'm going to have a live client and we're going to do some hair cutting. I'm going to focus on short hair cutting with a scissor, and we're going to go on a series now for the next while where I teach you, more about this, and we're going to kind of keep it classic as well. If you are interested in classes and you want to come for a class, some of the classes that you're guaranteed to see me teach will be our California classes. I'm going to be teaching a classic haircutting class in California. It's a 3-day class in Santa Monica, and I believe that's starting in March or the end of February, early March. Again, if you're interested in any tools, you got a 24-hour sale for those people that tuned in as my gift. If you're interested, you can check out the Arrojo BMAC, the Arrojo Mizutani, or all the razors, tools, clips, combs, brushes, you name it, we got it. And the code is BKLYN live, and it'll give you 20% off. Do we have any final questions? Well, thanks very much for tuning in. I hope it's been a big help for you, and I look forward to seeing you next Thursday on Brooklyn Live. And thanks to James for coming in early to film it for us. And have a great day and a happy one.